guys, Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music, and welcome to another episode of Riff Theory, where I take iconic guitar riffs and I break down the theory behind them so we can extract the secret sauce from them and implement them and use it in our own creative guitar ways. So this particular episode is focused on 10 iconic, absolutely iconic riffs that we all know as guitar players that all use the same scale, the blues scale. So not the minor pentatonic, but the actual blues scale itself, because there's a million more riffs that are just using the pentatonic. But I want to focus on that flat 5 note, is what it's called, that's added to the minor pentatonic scale as a passing tone. It adds that bluesy flavor, but when you hear it on its own, it's also got a real darkness to it that Metallica loves. So here are 10 riffs that use the blues scale. Walk This Way by Aerosmith. Now, it's the E blues scale, and if you look at the scale, so here's the minor pentatonic scale. But when we add the flat 5, which would be on the 1st fret of the A string and the 3rd fret of the G string, it now has a bluesier quality to it. And blues rock is definitely the definition of Aerosmith. So we look at how that flat 5 fits into Walk This Way. It goes right up that little chromatic run there, 1, 2, and then right to the octave, but it's from the blues scale. Octave. So what would Walk This Way look like in the key of C? And so I can see what that lick looks like in that position, not the open position. This is good for my musical mind here. I can actually transpose the lick into a different key and see how that scale looks. So if I wanted it in D and I stayed in this position with the root on the A string instead, that brings us to the next iconic riff that uses the flat 5, that blues scale, and that is AC/DC Back in Black. Well, first we have E again, so we're in the same, if I said the blues scale, that means the same scale that we're just using in Walk This Way. Now, it uses that flat 5 in both octaves, and I'll show you how. It does those chords, classic, and I have tutorials for all these songs on the channel. Okay, classic chords, but here's where the flat 5 comes in. He's bending that G string, and you're hearing the flat 5. Now, is he bending it a whole step? Whether he's bending it all the way up a whole step or not, you're hearing that flat 5 in the bend come back and come back down. And then here's that flat 5 again. The flat 5 of E blues is a B flat note. So check it out. In this riff, So there it is, is right there, that B flat note on that other part of the riff. Next riff that uses the blues scale is Led Zeppelin Heartbreaker. Now you might think Black Dog, but Black Dog's actually using a chromatic from the 7 up to the root, whereas Heartbreaker is using that flat 5, and it's the A blues scale, which, you know, we can play. I think he played it with the open A, but if you look at the A blues scale in that open position, it's really good to know as a guitar player. Now that blues scale would be on the 4th fret of the B string. You got that root right there on the 2nd fret G. And that flat 5 is D sharp or E flat. And so here's how that riff looks. And that's just a... That's called the 7th. It's a whole step below the root, but we're going to use the open A string. There's that blues note right there. Going chromatically up, that flat 5 is the passing tone up to the D sharp to the E. Well, what would that just look like in the classic pentatonic position? Now, something about that flat 5 that Metallica uses a lot is they like to, and Hendrix did it, they'll actually stick on that to give it that darkness. It sounds good as a passing tone, but when you stay on it, it's just the darkest interval, meaning the darkest 2 notes together. That's called the tritone. But as soon as it passes below or up, it gives us that relief. So I'll show you how Metallica uses that blues scale. That brings us to Enter Sandman. And this is a perfect example of a more heavy metal approach to that flat 5. So we've got a lot of octaves in this song, or this riff. It's the open E, then the octave, and then the minor third. And that's all from this E blues box. So open E to that octave, then the minor third. And that's all from blues. Then here's where that flat 5 comes in. correlation to Smoke on the Water with that riff. And all these riffs, actually, and they stick in our head. Whenever you hear that flat 5 and the relief, our brain locks into it. Very interesting. Here's some secret sauce. And this can just work in various keys. We actually found this in the first episode of Riff Theory, which was Thunderstruck, implementing open strings. Here's another classic riff, and it uses the blues scale, and it also implements open strings. It's a G, and it's the minor third of the E blues scale. But we have that open G right here. And if we play it, it'll ring out as we play the riff. So instead of, and our hand comes off so that G stops ringing, instead we can play the open G, and it adds that little je ne sais quoi secret sauce. Now, just to show you that open blues scale, it's not played right here, but it's good to just translate it to another part of the neck. All right, that brings us to our next classic riff, and it's Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix. Here's where that blues scale comes into play. And also in this particular episode, I'm not going to the B.B. Kings and the Stevie Ray Vaughns, the actual blues guys, because they're using it to play the blues. This is classic rock guitar that you may not always recognize coming from the blues scale. So Foxy Lady, I don't have the fuzz pedal here, the proper. So I have a tutorial on this with some more intricacy, but the basic riff, Guitar Center version, is rocking that little technique, but that ba-da-da-da, it's just right up that scale, not from the root, but the minor third up. And once again, that note of the scale is an A note, so we can get clever. Once again, another classic riff in the blues scale and using a little open string action. Another riff, Master of Puppets. Now, Master of Puppets, the main riff, when you use all half steps in a row, that's the chromatic scale, but the blues note is meant to be chromatic. So when it plays that riff, that's chromatic. Chromatic, chromatic. There's that blues note. This part too, when they're playing the rhythm. It's actually also using 035. And so that's there's that flat 5 again. Next up on the list is Jimi Hendrix Fire, and it uses that flat 5 right off the bat. So it's in the key of D. We could call it an A flat or G sharp. Yeah, A flat to G natural. And so if I'm doing it right here, the D blues scale. So that's D right there. So I could do it here. It's also right here. But I could do them as octaves. Next on the list is Iron Man, but it's not the main riff of Iron Man. It's that little bridge section. It uses the blues scale and a little chromatic. So the B blues scale, 7th fret E string. And we just go right up the scale. Blues scale. And then chromatic. That's the blues scale. And when you're right here, that's chromatic. Flat 5, chromatic. That brings us to our next riff, and that is Sunshine of Your Love. It's using the D blues scale. So if I go up here, I've got the D blues scale starting on the 10th fret E string. And then I've got 10, 11, 12 on the A string, which is that blues run. Just the single note version. A lot of variations, especially if I know all my positions of the blues scale. Goes to the G blues scale for the change. brings us to the final blues scale riff, and it is Smoke on the Water. Had to do the 035 version of that one as well. But so check it out. Smoke on the Water. There's different ways to play it. The correct way, blah, blah, blah. I hear you. Go ahead. Let me know who you are. But if I just took the G blues scale, we've got just the classic shape we've been using. It could be right here too. So Smoke on the Water is in the key of G. So let's say I wanted to play the roots of it. Right? Or on one string. Well, if I harmonize it with the 5, then that's great. I add a root on top. Well, let's just say it sounds darker if I don't play the root, and it's just these two. Well, let's say I just want to do it with one finger. Well, let's say I'm just a jazz snob or a guitar snob, and I want to go, but I realize that those same two notes are right here. And that means that if that's right there, then this is right here. And is right here. So then if I realize I have a little box, then I can play that whole riff in one hand position. My hand doesn't move around. Now to recap, I'm going to go through all 10 of those riffs, but they're going to be all in one position of one scale and one key. So these aren't the original riffs, but just to show our brain how that blues scale works, we're going to go right now, and I'm just going to stay all in the A blues scale. So Walk This Way would look like this. Back in Black. Heartbreaker. Foxy Lady. Enter Sandman. Fire. Master of Puppets. Iron Man. Sunshine of Your Love. And finally, Smoke on the Water. So that was another episode of Riff Theory. Appreciate you guys enjoying the new series. Feedback's been great. I'd love to hear from you on other riffs you'd like to see me break down and other ideas. Like this was a little kind of special compilation one. And I really enjoyed analyzing these and figuring them out for myself. And it was fun to pass it on to you guys as well. So let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. Also, if you haven't, I appreciate you subscribing here to the channel. And then of course I have a bunch of premium courses, some of which are free. So you can check all that out at martymusic.com. And thanks again for watching Riff Theory. Bing. Hope to see you guys again.